You did it, okay.
So you
Well,
want to unmute, put it back,
just put it on speaker, unmute.
and then you're started.
Um, yeah,
When you want to record when
yeah,
you're
go ahead. We'll start now.
ready.
Yeah, go.
The recording has started.
Greetings, family. Welcome to another one of your Frank26 Tubies. It's good to be with you. We are KTFalways.com. And what we're going to do tonight is something a little different. We're going to spend some time to educate you on the gold and silver opportunity that we want to share with you. I'd like for you to get a pencil and paper so you can take notes. And this recording will be left up on my YouTube channel so that you'll be able to reference back to it. But I'm excited to bring this to you, family. I believe this is the perfect time to do so. With that in mind, I'd like to introduce you to my broker. His name is Larry. A lot of you know my broker. We've had a good relationship for probably about a good, I don't know, about 17 years or so. And Larry is going to introduce to you the gentleman that I'm excited for you to meet tonight. So, without any further ado, uh, Larry, are you there, sir?
Yes, sir.
Hey,
First,
good.
I want to say hello to the family, and you and I have been working on this exciting opportunity for I don't know how long now. It's been over a year, and we finally were blessed with finding someone that we can put effort towards and help our family with IRAs, with gold and silver. And I won't get into all that. I'll let him explain all that. But the gentleman's name is Andy Schickman, and he is the CEO owner of Miles Franklin Metals.
Hmm.
And I will let him explain all of his, details on his metals career and everything he's done in the metal industry and what he can do for us moving forward. But Andy, I'm going to turn it over to you right now.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, guys. It's an honor to be here. Um, Let me start because I think I need to put a little color to this as to who I am and where I come from and the way that I look at gold and silver, because I think it plays a vital part in understanding everything that I say tonight. Um, we have been in business now for 34 years. I will be 54 years old in about a week, 8 days, and I have spent the majority of my life in this business. My father and I started this business on a wing and a prayer. We are the embodiment of the American dream. I went to the University of Minnesota to play baseball, and I hurt myself as a 19-year-old kid. I tore up my knee, and my dad said, well, I want you to start this company with me. And we started in a one-room office the size of a closet in 1989 in Minneapolis. And my dad's middle name is Miles, and his best friend's middle name is Franklin. He lent us $60,000 to start this endeavor, the least likely cast of characters to have ever succeeded the way that we have. And my parents sold their life insurance policies to fund the start. I spent 3 years in Zurich, Switzerland, learning from Swiss bankers, as our initial thrust was working with the Swiss insurance industry, something we still do today, but we realized very quickly the same person that bought Swiss francs bought gold. And my father said to me as we were starting this company, because he came from working as a salesman at a gold company in Minneapolis when he was asked to speak around the world on precious metals. And, well, let me back up even a little further than that. In 1983, he was told to file bankruptcy. Both my parents were. And in an attempt to put food on the table, he took a job as a commission salesman at a company called Investment Rarities. He was a history major. He had no idea what gold was. When speaking about precious metals back then, he understood it was the why, not the what, that mattered. And he took to it like a fish to water. And in doing so, and speaking on behalf of his company, about 2 years later, he became the public spokesman for the company he started at. He was speaking in Switzerland, and they asked him, some fellas asked him to bring Swiss investments to the United States. So he left the only secure job he had had in years to start on a wing and a prayer, Miles Franklin. And he asked me to join him. He said to me, but there'll be one rule and only one rule, Andy, or I'll fire you. And he said, I won't let you make the same mistakes that I made as a younger man. He said, every 2 weeks when you get paid, you'll put some of that money into gold and silver, period, or I'll fire you. Well, it's been 34 years. I've owned the company outright for 2 decades. He won't fire me anymore. He's still alive, and we talk all the time. But I've honored my word to him. And every 2 weeks for 34 years, I have never missed a 2-week period of buying some form of wealth, gold or silver. And to me, that's what it is. It is wealth. And it is the best gift he's ever given me. It allowed me to understand the laws of compounding, working for me rather than against me, and to pay myself first. Allowed me to get out of the rat race, if you will. But what I have taken away from it is that gold and silver are wealth. They're not investments. If you own enough of it, you'll be wealthy. But it has outlived 2 world wars, German hyperinflation, the Great Depression, every pandemic. And here we are, 5,000 years after it was written, I don't know how many hundreds of times in the Bible, that the most well-funded and well-informed traders in the world, the central banks, just this year, have bought more gold than in the first 6 months of a year than in any time ever in history, only surpassing last year. 2023, the first 6 months of the year, the central banks bought more than at any time in history. The central banks are not only the most well-funded investors on the planet, more relevant, they are the most well-informed. And they know where we are going. And where we are going with precious metals is somewhere very, very different than most financial advisors would ever tell you. So anything that I ever speak of when I mention gold and silver, to me, they are wealth. Albeit they offer tremendous upside potential, not only to make money, but also to help pivot away from what's coming down the pike. And I think there are some tremendous things coming down the pike that could be very detrimental, to the point where I truly do believe if you are not a contrarian, you have a darn good chance of becoming a victim. And I will go through all of this for you. But my entire career, I would sell gold because it was wealth, because it was an asset that I hoped I never needed to use. If I did, not just for an emergency, maybe an opportunity. I'm darn glad I have it. Certainly, everyone thinks of it as a tool to protect in the face of adversity or in a calamity, or as insurance against the brain-dead monetary policy of the Federal Reserve, or whatever your choice is. Most people think of owning gold and silver as insurance against the system breaking down. And it's not just that, albeit that is certainly one of the reasons to own it. To me, it is because it is wealth that continues to maintain its purchasing power in the face of a currency that continues to be inflated away, little by little by little by little. We call that logarithmic decay. Little by little by little by little, then all at once. Now, we haven't seen that all at once moment yet, but I might paint a picture where we will. So suffice it to say, as we go down this journey, I want you to understand that to me, gold and silver are not investments. When I recommend any type of gold and silver, it will be bullion gold and silver. It will be American Eagle gold coins, Canadian maple leaf, bars, things that are very rich in content, that are not esoteric, that are not rare, that will give you a chance to not only do very well with your investment, but have zero in the way of subjectivity, massive liquidity, items that everyone is looking for, not rare collectibles or esoteric coins that have a story behind them, but rather very liquid, very sought after, very vanilla bullion or bullion coins issued by one of 6 sovereign mints in the world, either the United States, Canada, Australia, Austria, the United Kingdom, South Africa. I think that's 6. All 6 of those mints are akin to Pepsi, Coke, Sprite, Dr. Pepper, and 7-Up. You may not like one flavor over the next, but they all drink the same. Same is true here. They're just issued by different countries and different designs on them. But in the end, they're probably all the same. There's something to be said for American-made coins, and we'll touch on that too. But I want to take you back on a journey to 2017 and move forward from there and look at all the mile markers that I have seen along the way and how gold and silver factor into this. Now, in 2000, let's start there. In 2000, gold began its bull market journey and appreciated by nearly 13, 14% every year until 2011. And in 2011, we had an all-time high in gold at the time of $1,915 and silver of $50 an ounce. And from that moment, things changed, started to fall. Price of gold embarked upon a 6-year bear market to 2017. This is when everything changed for me. Now, I've been doing a lot of public speaking at conferences along the way. I didn't start doing YouTubes until 2020, but when 2020 hit and YouTube said, everything changed for me, and I'll get to that. But let's go back to 2017. It was in the midst of a 6-year drawdown in the price of gold. And central banks were selling their gold. Central banks made no sense to me why the wealthiest, most well-informed traders in the world would shed their gold. I guess the reason was the new generation of central bankers replacing the old gray hairs looked at gold and said, this is an archaic relic paying nothing in the way of interest. We could sell it, not have to store it anymore, free up the capital, and use it to buy treasuries or to make investments. You see, in 2017, gold was classified by the Bank of International Settlements, the most powerful bank in the world, central banker's central bank, as a Tier 3 asset. And what a Tier 3 asset means is that only 50% of its value would be calculated on a balance sheet, thereby denigrating the value of the balance sheet, prohibiting or inhibiting the ability to make loans and conduct international business. And so there was a drive to sell central bank gold, and they were all selling. In 2017, something happened that changed all of this, and everything began to change from that point forward. So in 2017, out of nowhere, in a very public statement, the German Bundesbank started publicly saying in all forms of news outlets, we have been trying to bring our gold back from the New York Federal Reserve now for 3 years, and we demand that you send us back our gold. You see, for many, many years, all of the world's gold has been held primarily in one of two locations. The New York Federal Reserve, which would give direct access to the COMEX market, the price-setting mechanism of the world, or the Bank of England, which would give direct access to the London Bullion Metals Exchange, 140-year-old exchange, the oldest trading hub on the planet. And so everyone would keep their gold in these stable jurisdictions with Western rule of law, LOL, to provide safety and integrity and the ability to freely trade gold in the world markets without having to ship it from across the globe. So German Bundesbank said, give us back our gold. Very unusual, because they've all been selling. Within a few weeks of that, things began to become very interesting. The Bank of Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, the Dutch National Bank, the Czech National Bank, many, many other banks, mostly in Eastern Europe, all said to the Bank of England and the New York Fed, yeah, give us back our gold too. Now, I'm doing public speaking about this, and this catches my attention, and this is what I'm talking about. And I'm showing all sorts of charts and facts and figures on how gold is suppressed by the bullion banks. And all of a sudden, now, in the midst of a 6-year downdraft, these banks want their gold back. Why? Well, the next year, 2018, those same central banks bought more gold together as a group than they did combined in the 60 years previous. Now I'm really interested. Something's going on. The following year in 2019, those numbers were doubled, 100% more. Now they're going on a buying spree the world has never seen. And let's just call this ironically, wink, wink. And there's nothing ironic about it. In fact, it was obviously, the plan was obviously hinted to these banks. The Bank of International Settlements, once again, the most powerful bank on the planet, the central bank, out of nowhere, reclassifies gold as the only other Tier 1 reserve asset in the world. Since the end of World War II, there's been 2 Tier 1 assets as far as central banks are concerned, U.S. dollars and U.S. treasuries. A riskless asset. So when the Bank of England was trading with the Bank of Switzerland, they wouldn't use pounds or francs as collateral, they would use dollars or treasuries. When factored into 70 years nearly worth of dollar and treasury supremacy in Tier 1 assets, the fact that they quietly reclassified gold as the only other tier one asset in the world was probably at that point the biggest development of my career. And it made perfect sense. Obviously, they said to their central bank buddies, listen, bring your gold home, start buying it, we're going to reclassify it as tier one. Very interesting. 2020 rolls around, and we see the banks continuing to buy massive amounts of gold. And then I stumble across, let's call it mile marker number 2, the second most impactful event, at least in terms of the way that I looked at the world. And that was the Chinese Belt Road and Rail Initiative. Now, I'm venturing to think that most of you will have never heard most of what I'm about to say. Maybe those of you that have followed me will. But many of you will never know what I'm saying. So I would invite you to write these things down and Google them. Everything that I will tell you is based and rooted in fact. Where we deviate from fact is when I try and take all of these crumbs and fashion them into a cookie at the end of the discussion.
Okay.
And I think it becomes very easy to see the shape of said cookie yourselves. But you need to be able to see each and every one of these events in order to understand what gold really is right now.
Yes.
And when I say gold, in many respects, I mean silver, but gold is special. Gold is the only other tier one reserve asset. And while silver is being massively accumulated, keep that in mind. To me, I think of both of them, typically, when I say one or the other. So in any case, in 2020, I stumbled across something called the Chinese Belt Road and Rail Initiative. And what intrigued me so much about this is that it is the largest infrastructure project in human history.
Yeah.
It is China's attempt to connect Asia, Africa, parts of Europe, and South America.
Right.
Connect them with roads and bridges and railways and maritime channels.
Right.
Connect them in a myriad of commerce that will only be traveled by military and by commerce. It's the Panama Canal on steroids. Currently, there are roughly 150 plus countries involved in the Belt Road Initiative, representing 50% of global GDP and 75% of human population. One thing that really caught my attention is that every single OPEC producing country is on the Belt and Road Initiative. That was not a mistake, in my opinion. The Belt and Road Initiative's goal is to connect all of these under-industrialized countries that have massive resources in the ground and help them build oil refineries and wells, gold and silver mines, to extract the natural resources, to build the infrastructure, to bring them to market, and to enrich these countries and allow them to become industrialized. This became a very, very big piece of my thinking in the respect that all of these countries were in a common goal to enrich and to extract natural resources in a cooperative fashion. And every single OPEC country was on it, but the West wasn't. That made me very nervous. In 2020, we also see the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, that was also formed at the end of World War II at Bretton Woods when the dollar became the world reserve currency. You see, at the end of World War II, after 2 world wars in Europe, the United States said to the world, listen, here's the deal. You take our dollars, okay? And it was all done in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. That's why they call it Bretton Woods Agreement. Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, the Allies all met, and they anointed the dollar as the world reserve currency, replacing the pound sterling. And we said, listen, here's the deal. You take our dollars, and at any time you want to trade them back in, we'll give you gold at a fixed rate of $35 an ounce. And furthermore, all of you who are holding gold, we'll hold it for you in the safe jurisdiction of the United States. We'll put it in Fort Knox, and you will pay you $35 an ounce for it. You can take that money and buy treasuries. You'll help us. You'll get some yield on your non-yielding investment. It will be safely put away, and you can always get it back for $35 an ounce. And it was that way for many, many years until towards the end of the Vietnam War. President de Gaulle from France realized we were printing more dollars than we had gold at Fort Knox, and he called our bluff, and he sent warships to New York Harbor filled with dollars and said, give us back our gold. And we did. And we bled down, or he bled down almost 50% of the gold at the Treasury, and Nixon closed the gold window, making our dollar fiat. Now, I'll pick that story back up in a minute. Let's go back to 2020. The IMF, which is Western-friendly institution, roughly 100, 150 countries, they said on their website, we want a new Bretton Woods. We want a new system. Now I'm really starting to think something's going on here. The central banks are buying gold, they're repatriating it, and now the IMF says we want a new Bretton Woods. China and the Belt Road Initiative has 50% of GDP and 75% of human population in all the OPEC countries. Where are we? What's going on? Something's going on here. And I start doing YouTubes. I've done almost 5,000 YouTubes since late 2019. I do 15 to 25 a week, every week, continuously, and have since roughly 2020. All focusing on this topic. Most of them, anyways. So now we get to 2021, and things began to change in many respects. Things begin to accelerate. The central banks are massively buying gold, and the world is starting to spin a little further out of control. And we see what happened in Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, I hope I'm getting my dates right, because I haven't gone down this road without any notes for a while. I want to say it was August of 2021. Now, it could have been 2022, but in any case, when we left Afghanistan, this might have been mile marker number 3. We left Afghanistan in a way that if you grew up in the United States, I'm 54, if you're my age or older, you always knew the mantra, no man left behind. Well, we left 3,000 Americans behind enemy lines, and maybe worse than that,
Yes.
we left the freedom fighters and the interpreters who risked their lives and their families' lives to help the U.S. With the promise of a visa to the United States. And we left them there, including billions of dollars worth of military equipment and people hanging from the wings of a transport plane. We left these people there to be hunted by the Taliban. There's a great movie called The Covenant. It's fictional, but it deals with this subject, and it's bone-chilling when you see what we really did.
I've seen it.
In any case, this was not lost on the rest of the world. And about 2 weeks after we left Afghanistan, or less, and not by, I think, coincidence, Saudi Arabia said to Russia, let's strike a deal. And they signed a joint military cooperation agreement. Now, for 50 years, it has been the protection of the Saudi kingdom that has given us the petrodollar status. Now, I haven't covered that yet, so I suppose I had to go back. So in 1974, after 3 years of the dollar being backed by nothing, Henry Kissinger was dispatched to Saudi Arabia. And he made a deal with the Saudi kingdom. And he said, listen, we're going to protect you. And since the whole world owns dollars already because it's been the world reserve currency, or was, since 1944, everyone's got dollars. So here's the deal. We'll protect you. We'll give you military equipment. We'll teach you how to use it. We'll provide support. No one will ever mess with you ever again. Never. And for that, you will value oil globally in dollars, you and OPEC. And any excess reserves you will recycle back in the way of U.S. Treasuries.
That's right.
And for that, we will protect you, and the Saudi kingdom will never have to worry again, nor will OPEC. And it has been that way for 50 years. For 50 years, every country in the world has had to stockpile dollars, creating a synthetic demand for the U.S. dollar. And that's why we got the name the petrodollar. The world reserve status really is nothing other than the confidence in the United States and the protection of the Saudi kingdom. So let's go back to leaving Afghanistan in a less than harmonious way. Saudi Arabia signs a joint military cooperation agreement with Russia. Now, I thought it was just us protecting Saudi kingdom. This is a big deal. The next day, Russia signs it with Nigeria, another OPEC-producing country. This is even a bigger deal. The wheels are beginning to move. And then in 2022, I start talking about the BRICS. This is where everything changes. Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa. These countries have formed an alliance that has been growing for 18 years where we are right now. But it really started to to gain traction, something I really noticed in 2022. So let's just recap for a moment. We have gold being reclassified, the only other Tier 1 asset in the world. We have the rise of the Belt Road Initiative, the largest infrastructure project in human history, that every OPEC country is on, but the United States is not. None of the Western countries are. We have Saudi Arabia signing a joint military cooperation agreement with Russia along with Nigeria after we leave Afghanistan in a less than American way, turning our back on our allies. And then we have the rise of the BRICS. And when you talk about the BRICS, it is a massive threat to everything that we hold dear right now. And I say that to you for many reasons, all of which I will discuss in a moment. So last year, and by the way, all along the way, the central banks are massively buying gold. And using the suppression of the Western paper markets, COMEX and the London Bullion Metals Exchange, which are being suppressed by bullion banks, 8 or 9 of them, 8 of them in particular, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, Standard Chartered Bank, Citibank, Bank of America, HSBC. These are the banks that have been holding the price of gold and silver down. And if you don't believe that, all you need to do is realize that JP Morgan paid a $920 million fine in 2022 to the Justice Department, the largest fine they've ever handed out for manipulating the gold market. And this is the bank that is still allowed to be the custodian of the world's largest silver trust, SLV, and partial custodian of GLD, the 4th largest stockpile of gold in the world. They are criminal banks. They made $1 billion in 2022. Their gold desk did. The company itself makes $1 billion a month. The gold desk made $1 billion that year. They were fined $920 million. Their head trader, guy I know, had lunch with at a conference, is in prison right now, but they still walked away $80 million positive and continue to be the administrator of the world's largest silver trust. We'll cover more of that later. So in any case, we now are at a period of time where the BRICS start to really dominate the things that I am talking about. And we see last year, or in 2023, kind of maybe the death knell for the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. dollar. Let's call it the end of the dollar hegemony. They still have the supremacy, we do, but the hegemony is gone. And that was the decision, and a very poor decision at that, to weaponize the U.S. Treasury market and the U.S. dollar. The world reserve currency should not have the prerogative of being judge and jury, and executioner for that matter. And we sanctioned all of the assets of Russia for invading the Ukraine. Now, I want to put it in perspective for a moment before I continue. We invaded Iraq 20 years ago under the guise of weapons of mass destruction, and we're really sorry we didn't find any, even though we destroyed your country and toppled your regime. But guess what? It's 20 years later and we're still here. We're still occupying your country. And even though you made $90 billion in oil revenue last year, you are not allowed to control that. We hold it for you in trust at the New York Federal Reserve. And Iraq asked us at the end of 2023, can we please have $1 billion of the $90 billion we made in oil revenue last year? And we said, listen, it's your money, but it's not a good time. Could you come back to us next year? So what has Iraq done? They have formally applied to BRICS. They have made trading in dollars illegal. If you own a business and you trade in dollars, you will end up in prison and your business taken by the state. As of January of this year, all green dollar bills, 50s, 100s, 20s, they're gone. There's not one bank in Iraq that will hold them. And they are in the process of kicking Western coalition forces out of the country. Or even a better example, Janet Yellen says to CNN last month, we're okay with Xi Jinping and Putin being friends and allies in BRICS. My initial thought was, well, thank you, Madam Secretary. That's very benevolent of you. But if Xi gives one penny to the Russian war machine, we will sanction their banks, their companies, and Beijing itself, again with the sanctions. Never mind the fact, of course, that we've given $260 billion to the Ukraine with no congressional oversight, Stinger missiles, F-16 fighter jets, and the intelligence on where to drop it because we're the world reserve currency. so it doesn't matter. See, the world views us as being hypocritical. But we took it a step further, and we have confiscated Russian assets. And we have used them to give to the military-industrial complex to build weapons to give to the Ukraine, a country they are in the war against. That is the line you never come back from, in my opinion. We will never be trusted again. But you see, what's really interesting about all of this, the lead economic advisor to the Biden administration is a knucklehead named Jared Bernstein. Jared Bernstein is a man who graduated with a degree in music and a master's degree in social work. I bet you all agree those are qualifications worthy of being the lead economic advisor for the most powerful country on the planet. And his whole thesis is to lose the world reserve status. That is a privilege we can no longer afford. And because of the distortions and the imbalances it creates. And he might be right, but in my opinion, it is a privilege we should be clinging to. Because by the good graces of our foreign creditors, we have all been allowed to live well beyond our means, being the world reserve currency, being the petrodollar, the synthetic demand that has been created for the dollar worldwide for 50 years is an exorbitant privilege we have disrespected and disregarded. But after all, that's what Jared Bernstein wants. And so what we have seen subsequently is we have seen, and by the way, Biden's first act in office was to sign an executive order to go green. And you put that together with weaponizing the dollar, what was the result? Well, here are the results. The result is that Saudi Arabia, the linchpin of the dollar hegemony, says, you're going green, huh? And you're weaponizing the dollar against the southern hemisphere, Iran and Russia and many, many other countries. You've turned your back militarily on the Afghans and left the freedom fighters there. And, well, you're supposed to be protecting us. I don't know how secure we feel about all this. We're going to join the BRICS. And they officially applied to the BRICS in 2023 and have now been accepted as a member of the BRICS. They joined the Belt and Road Initiative along with every other OPEC country. Every other OPEC countries on the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. They joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the largest regional financial and military organization on the planet. They joined the BRICS New Development Bank, which I will get to, which is very, very influential in the final outcome of what I'm talking about. They told everyone in Davos that we're open to taking other currencies for oil. And just last month, the 50th anniversary of the exclusivity deal of dollars being sold in oil being sold in dollars only, they decided to not sign it. They decided to say to the world, we'll still take dollars, but we're open to taking anything else. At that moment, the fuse has been lit on the dollar's supremacy. Certainly its hegemony is gone. It is gone because Saudi Arabia and OPEC will sell oil in other currencies, and we've already seen that. We see Saudi Arabia selling oil to China for the digital yuan, which is immediately convertible into gold on the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And what is gold? The only other Tier 1 reserve asset. And this is where things began to get crazy. Last year, Saudi Arabia was admitted, as was the United Arab Emirates, the seventh largest producer of oil in the world. They are now a BRICS member. They had a meeting earlier this year, did United Arab Emirates, where it was for the United Nations. And there were, 200 countries represented from all around the world. And ironically, it was presided over by the head of the state-owned oil company, where he first told everyone, listen, y'all, if we do this, we're going back to the dark ages, but let's have the conference anyway. And this was the United Nations meeting on climate change and on going green initiative. And at the outset of the meeting, he said to everyone, we have decided that we really don't want to take dollars for oil anymore. This is the seventh largest producer of oil in the world, an OPEC country, and now a member of the BRICS. He said that to 200 delegates from around the world. So along Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, Iran, Ethiopia, and Egypt have joined the BRICS. So just these 10 countries alone, right now, represent a larger portion of human population, a larger portion of global GDP, two of the three largest nuclear, actually three of the four largest nuclear arsenals on the planet, India, China, and Russia, a larger portion of all of the world's commodities. The Chinese produce, and the Eurasian continent, roughly 80% of all of the rare earth metals that are needed in battery production and green initiative. China refined 100% of all of these rare earths last year, 100%. So we really haven't thought this green agenda out very well. You have 10 countries that are representing a much larger mass of everything. GDP, military might, human population, and all of the world's commodities. It gets better from there. Now let's remember what Jared Bernstein's thesis is: to lose the world reserve status. You weaponize the dollar. You tell everyone, if you're on the wrong side of us ideologically, we'll steal your money. The European Union is holding $280 billion in treasuries that the Russians own, European treasuries. They have just made the decision to take the interest, roughly $5 billion, or $1.5 billion, on the $280 billion, and provide it in the form of a loan to the Ukraine for weapons and reconstruction. Saudi Arabia said, if you do this, we will start selling treasuries, starting with the French treasuries. The West is being isolated and being viewed as countries that are incredibly tyrannical and hypocritical. It doesn't matter what my opinion is or yours. The perception around much of the world is that we are hypocritical, and what we do doesn't matter. What everyone else does is all that matters. And so whether it be sanctioning 14 of the banks in Iraq that we're still occupying after 20 years of being there, we're sanctioning 14 of their banks for having the audacity to try to buy liquid natural gas from Iranian banks. We're holding all of their oil revenue. We supposedly toppled the bad regime, put in a new one, and 20 years later, and went there under false pretenses, and we're still there. No consequences. Same thing is true about all of the sanctions that we imposed upon the globe. It's all done through the SWIFT system. It's all done by kicking you out of the ability to transact business in U.S. dollars, the global reserve currency. So, now here we are in 2024, and we have an environment where just this year, just this month, just this last week, there was a note that the central banks of the world have bought more gold in the first 6 months of this year than they did at any time in history, only surpassing the first 6 months of last year. The central banks are continuing to buy gold at a level the world has never seen. And they are also repatriating all of their gold. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and 9 African countries have all brought their gold home from the bank of the New York Fed in the last month. Remember, the Bundesbank from Germany, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, Austria, the Czech National Bank, the Dutch National Bank, they all brought their gold back. The Bank of India bought 1.5 times the amount of gold it bought all of last year, which was a record year, in the first 4 months of this year, and brought it all home to India and repatriated 100 metric tons they've held at the Bank of England since 1991. They are all bringing their gold home, and I will tell you why that is in a moment. Most people would think, well, it's to protect against the confiscation. Venezuela said to the Bank of England, can we have our gold back? And they said no. So all of these countries want to bring their gold back partially to remove counterparty liability, because that's what gold is, you guys. Gold is one of the only assets in the world that is simultaneously no one else's liability. There is no counterparty risk in holding gold. It can't be defaulted upon because its value is inherent. You're not reliant on a counterparty to make good.
Right.
And in the systemic world we live in, that will become very relevant in the future. So let's get to where we are right now. We'll speed up a little bit. And here we are in 2024. Over the last 25 years, gold has averaged 9.9% compounded. It has beat every traditional asset on the planet. It has outperformed every one of them, at least in the United States. Every single one of them. Traditional, not Bitcoin. It's the only other one that started from zero. We'll forget about that for a moment. But stocks, bonds, real estate, it's outperformed them all. The S&P 500 with dividends reinvested since 2000 has averaged 9.4%, gold 9.9%. It has doubled the performance of the 10-year Treasury and has zero counterparty liability. So what we have been seeing over the past 2 years is all of the the central banks that have been buying our treasuries and allowing us to live this exorbitant lifestyle, buying our debt, have been selling it. China, as an example, was up to $3 trillion in treasuries. They're down to $700 billion. And what are they replacing it with? Gold, which is the only other tier one asset on par with U.S. treasuries, period. But it has no counterparty liability, and it has doubled the performance of the 10-year treasury. Why the heck would anyone hold treasuries in a country that is destroying its currency? Well, how are they doing that, you may say? Everyone says we have a $35 trillion debt. That sounds like a lot, right? We have $155 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Medicare Part B, $99 trillion in the hole. Medicare Part D, the prescription, $22 trillion. Social Security, $77 trillion. We're damn well near $200 trillion in unfunded liabilities. They're not on the balance sheet. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. We are a country, according to the 2023 balance sheet, that has $35 trillion in debt. They don't count the unfunded off-balance sheet liabilities that we all count on, Social Security and Medicare, but we only have $5 trillion in assets. The U.S. government owns $5 trillion in assets. And the largest asset, and Google this one, this will make you sick, the largest asset of the U.S. government. Now, there's a lot of wealth in this country, but the government has just over $5 trillion in assets and $35 trillion in liabilities. Forget about the unfunded liabilities, just the balance sheet. The largest asset of the land of the free and the home of the brave is about 45% of their assets, $1.6 trillion in student debt. It is considered an asset. You cannot default on it. They will take your Social Security, if it even is ever paid. But the point of it is, we are damn well near 130% debt to GDP. There has never been a country ever that has come back from that, either through hyperinflation or default. It's the line you cross that you're dead. We're real close to it right now, at about 120, 125% debt to GDP. If the numbers were real, we'd be much higher than that. Most of my career, any nation that crossed 100% debt to GDP was a banana republic, especially those when you would call into question the elections and the judicial system. Oh, wait a second. Oh, yeah, that's right. Most of the world looks at us as a country that's lost its mind, a country that used to say the Pledge of Allegiance, a country that used to respect religion, respect authority. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am, hold the door for a lady. Where you would come to this country legally and assimilate and contribute, where people left authoritarian regimes and would walk across, long before they came recently across the Rio Grande, but would walk hundreds, if not many more miles to find liberty, to find justice in a justice system that would never be two-tiered, right? There would never be a perception of a two-tier justice system or lawlessness in our cities or open borders or elections that are called into question or a country that is now creating $100,000 of debt every single second, 24/7, 100,000, 200,000, and keep going until you fall asleep. And when you wake up, start again. Every day, 24/7, we are creating $1 trillion in debt every 100 days currently. That is an addiction to spending and fiscal irresponsibility the world has never seen. That is as big of a problem as it gets. Now, keep in mind, we're broke, we're insolvent, and we go around the world imposing sanctions and imposing our way coercively rather than cooperatively as the Belt Road and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and even the BRICS, who rotates their presidency. Last year it was in South Africa, this year it's in Russia. Not sure where it is next year, but it rotates. Everything they do is cooperative. Everything we do is through coercion. Now, remember what Jared Bernstein wants. He wants to lose the world reserve status. It is a privilege we can no longer afford. So the best way to do that, in my mind, would be to sign an executive order to go green. Weaponize the dollar against all of the Southern Hemisphere, even though many of the countries deem you to be hypocritical, and the things that we have done as an empire, and the 500 years of Western rule, the countries in Europe before us, always doing things through coercion. And yet we have the ability to make these sanctions and to make these declarations. And, well, that's not going over very well. And when you put that together with a currency that is literally $200 trillion in debt, and by the way, y'all, a trillion seconds ago, 31,688 years ago. $1 million? Yeah, that's not such a big deal. We all make $1 million if we work long enough. You may not save it, but you'll make it over a career. A trillion seconds ago, you have Neanderthals stalking the plains of Europe. And we're creating $1 trillion in debt every 100 days, which took 200 years to do the first time. So when you talk about a $200 trillion debt with only $5 trillion of assets by the U.S. government, the largest being student debt, number 2 military, number 3 land, like national parks and stuff that the government owns, we're broke, we're insolvent, we're hypocritical, and we have lost prestige. And then they look, if all of that were true, if we've squandered the reserve status, we've inflated away the currency, we've aggravated the world, we've weaponized the dollar, we've done all that, if this country was still the envy of the world, where every little boy and girl around the world wanted to listen to rock and roll and wear Levi's jeans and come to this country to experience freedom, well, we'd be okay. But look what's happened to our beautiful country. Lawlessness. 20 million people in here illegally. 5% want to cause damage, where like in Dearborn, Michigan, they say death to America. That's 1 million people. That's a standing army. Bigger than any standing army. We have a judicial system that I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, the world questions the authenticity of it and wonders if it's two-tiered. You look at the electoral system, same thing. Was the election stolen from Trump or not? I'm not making a comment on that. I don't want to make anyone mad, but what I will say is that the world is wondering. All of the things that made this country spectacular. We were the largest producer. We are now the largest debtor. We produced nothing. We were the land of the free and the home of the brave, where it was about faith and credit. When you talk about faith, look at what we've done to the insides of this country, the lawlessness in the cities, the destruction of the cities, the incredible difference in the moral decay of this country. And the credit, what credit? We're completely broke and we are insolvent. So let's get back to the BRICS. There was a meeting 4 weeks ago, that coincided with the G7 meeting. Well, at the beginning of 2024, we were told there would be 200 BRICS meetings leading up to the big meeting in October, almost one every day, leading up to the big meeting in October in Russia, where they would announce what new delegates or what new countries were invited in, and the possibility of settlement currencies, common settlement currencies, all sorts of stuff. You see, 3 years ago, I started saying that the BRICS will issue a common currency pegged to gold. It'll be pegged to commodities. And the reason I said that was a man named Sergei Glaziev. He's the Eurasian Economic Union finance minister. These are all the countries that end in stand. And he also has an economic advisory role with Russia. And these countries will all join the BRICS. In fact, the president of Belarus, and I've been saying that for 3 years, the president of Belarus recently called for a summit to bring into BRICS the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the Eurasian Economic Union. Remember, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is the largest regional military organization in the world and the largest regional financial organization in the world. They represent a massive amount of human population in and of themselves. You put the Belt Road, the BRICS, the Eurasian Economic Union, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, they're all the same countries trying to do the same thing. It's 90% of human population. But in any case, so the meeting coincided with the G7 meeting in Italy. And the Royal Crown Prince, remember, he didn't re-up the exclusivity deal a month ago. And just after that, he was invited to the G7 meeting in Italy. He turned it down. Sorry, guys, I'm busy. But he sent his finance ministers to Novograd, Russia, where we have learned that 59 more countries have formally applied to the BRICS. Now, in October, they'll tell us which ones have been admitted. But we learned something really, really, really important. And I might be the only one talking about it. And I don't know why. But since 2019, for the first 2.5 years, I was the only one saying this stuff. Everyone thought I was crazy. Now everyone's talking about the BRICS. Everyone in my industry giving me notoriety. That's why I do almost 20 podcasts on everyone else's channels every week. Because I was right. and I've never been right like this in my 34-year career. It's very frightening to me. The things that I said are almost prophetic, and I'm not claiming to have a crystal ball or be prophetic in any way. I saw the crumbs, I put them together, because these events, every one of these events that I've mentioned in and of themselves, which gathered no Western media attention, to me were significant. The biggest, of course, being the Tier 1 revision of gold, and then Saudi Arabia joining alliances with the BRICS, the Belt Road Initiative. Put all of these things together, they're all the same people. They're all the same countries. They all have the same interests. They're all aligned. Anyways, so the Crown Prince says, no, I don't want to go, but he sent his finance ministers to the big meeting in Novigrad, where over 20,000 people were there representing many countries. And two things we learned: 59 countries have formally applied, on top of the 10 already, that already represent a larger portion of human population, GDP, military might, and natural resources. And the second thing we learned might be the biggest deal for the dollar, could be the death blow for the dollar if it is ratified. And what it is an admission by a woman named Dilma Rousseff. Dilma said, I had two meetings at the BRICS meeting, with Sergei Glaziev. He is the architect of the common settlement currency, where for 4 years he's been saying we will issue a currency with a basket of commodities and a basket of currencies in the Greece. Now, Dilma came out and she said, I had this meeting, two of them, with Putin and with Sergei Glaziev. And in principle, we have agreed to a new settlement currency. Well, Dilma Rousseff is the head of the BRICS New Development Bank. That's about on par in Western terms to the International Monetary Fund. It's a big deal. She's the former president of Brazil. She said, we've agreed in principle to a new settlement currency called the unit, which I'm going to get into in a second. And she said, we've decided to do a basket of gold only, 40%, redeemable on demand. 40% gold. What is gold? It's the only other Tier 1 asset. Who's been buying all the gold? Oh, yeah, it's all those BRICS countries. What are they doing with the gold? Oh, yeah, they're bringing it home from the New York Fed and the Bank of England, where it's all been for north of 50 years, because it gave access to the trading hubs. Well, just as an FYI, the Shanghai Metals Exchange over the past 100 days has increased by, the trading volume has increased by over 200%. And it has surpassed the COMEX market in trading volume, rendering it the number 2 most heavily traded metals exchange on the planet. It is a cash and carry market. You give your money, you get your gold. Saudi Arabia buys corn from Brazil, the second largest producer of corn in the world, who always used to sell those in dollars. They're selling it in yuan, which is immediately convertible into gold, which is what? The only other Tier 1 asset. So let's get back to what Dilma said. Dilma said it's going to be a basket of gold, 40%, and a basket of BRICS plus currencies, those countries that are in the BRICS Union. And she said, in theory and in principle, we've agreed upon it. And it will be traded over Project Embridge. I'm going to get into both of these things in a moment. We will have a special meeting in September to ratify it. And if ratified, we will roll it out in October at the big BRICS meeting, where we announce what other countries have been invited. Now, Project Embridge, let's start there. I have talked about Project Embridge for quite some time, but before I do that, I want to go back for a second. Remember in 2017, out of nowhere, all of those European banks brought their gold home. Really weird to do that after all of those years of leaving it there, out of the clear blue. And then they went on a 3-year buying spree, and then the BIS said, which is the most powerful bank in the world, they're pulling the strings of most of the decisions across the globe. They're bad people, and they're very, very powerful. And just ironically happened to be they reclassified gold as the world's only other Tier 1 asset. If you don't believe that those countries were told, get your gold home and start buying it, we're going to reclassify it Tier 1, I got some oceanfront real estate to sell you in Minneapolis. And so let's go back now. So Project Embridge. I have been talking about Project Embridge for over a year now, and many podcasts, because Project Embridge is a joint venture between China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates, and backed by, guess who? The Bank of International. And it is a cross-border payment system that allows for central bank digital currencies to trade freely with one another outside of the interference of the Western intermediary banks, i.e. the SWIFT system. The SWIFT system is not compatible, nor are U.S. dollars with Project Embridge. And guess what? Saudi Arabia just became a full participant on Project Embridge, the largest producer of oil in the world, who has joined BRICS, who turned down a meeting to the G7, who has joined the BRICS New Development Bank, who has joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, who signed a military agreement with Russia, is now a full participant in Project Embridge, which the United States and the SWIFT and the dollar are not. All right. So the reason I started talking about it is last year they did their first 2 test trades. And I have said for over a year that gold and oil have been remonetized. They are worth more than the currencies that are used to purchase them. Case in point, Iran awarded a $2 billion contract to China last year to modernize their biggest airport. And they're paying for it in oil. All of these countries that are taking the digital yuan right now are sending it back to China and immediately exchanging it on the Shanghai Gold Exchange for gold, which is what? The only other Tier 1 reserve asset next to U.S. dollars and treasuries. I hope I've really banged that into your head right now, because the Western media does a ridiculous, in fact, they do no job of telling us what is important. For 70 years, the only Tier 1 assets were dollars and treasuries, and now it's gold, and not a word from our talking heads. It's disgraceful. Anyways, so Project Embridge, the first 2 trades they did were in oil and in gold, trading digital yuan from China to United Arab Emirates for gold and for oil, and it was successful. Well, Project Embridge is now fully operational. And remember the way the BIS does things. Tells these institutions well in advance to quietly start bringing things home and accumulating. And I'm going to get into, if you'd like, a little bit later as to how they're able to do this without disrupting the price. But in any case, the unit, I've read the white paper on the unit and on Project Embridge. So first and foremost, Project Embridge will only trade central bank digital currencies cross-border, no Western interference, no sanctioning. So the digital yuan can trade with the digital ruble or the digital rupee with the digital real and all of these currencies. In fact, if you look right now, of all of the countries that comprise 98% of global GDP, every single one of them have a central bank digital currency in operation or near full development. Even the United States does. The number 2 economic advisor to the U.S. government, we'll talk about in a minute, her name is Lael Brainerd. She's a modern monetary theorist. She worked at the Fed. She worked at the Treasury. She was number 2 under Powell, and if Harris wins, she'll be the head of the Federal Reserve. She advocates for a central bank digital currency. She wants Jared Bernstein's dream to come true of losing the reserve status, letting everything blow up. And I'll tell you how that could possibly happen in a moment as well, so she can issue a CBDC. But when she was at the Boston Fed, she developed with MIT the central bank digital currency for the United States that Biden fast-tracked by executive order early on in his administration. We have one that's ready to roll out. She also just ran point for something called Fed Now, which is Venmo and Zelle on steroids backed by the Fed. It is being piloted, has been for most of the last year with a handful of banks. Its checks and wires will be gone, and in its place will be instant settlement. So when you go to buy a new F-150, you don't have to leave the dealership, go to the bank, send a wire. You can just like you would on Venmo or Zelle, boom, it's in their account. So she's a modern monetary theorist, wants to get rid of currency, wants to get rid of the banks and have all money issued by the Fed. Anyways, so we take a look at Project Embridge, and that will only be cross-border payments. Now, everyone thought for all these years that the BRICS would issue a common currency, and people would say to me, how are these countries ever going to trust each other? They all have different, how is India going to trust China? I say, well, first of all, who the hell is going to trust the United States after what we've done with weaponizing the dollar, inflating it, sanctioning, invading countries under of these things? But I said, I get your point, but I think my enemy's enemy is my friend. They are uniting under a common goal. But as it turns out, what Sergei Glaziev and Dilma Rousseff and Putin and the rest of the BRICS have designed is not a common BRICS currency. They will all have their own central bank digital currencies. They will all have their own monetary autonomy, free from the West, where when one of these countries buys oil from another country, their currency, convert it through a Western bank into dollars, and there's KYC and AML legislation, means know your client, anti-money laundering. That takes time. It's costly. They have to convert it into a currency that they can buy the oil with U.S. dollars. They buy the oil, and they get the oil, and any transactions they ever do internationally have to be in dollars. The KYC, the AML, the cost, the time lag, and the sanctions are ridiculous. Project Embridge will say each and every one of us will have our own central bank digital currency. We will all be in charge of keeping our own financial house in order, and we will all trade over Project Embridge, which cannot be sanctioned by the West. Enter the unit. I read the white paper on the unit. The unit currency will be 40% gold in kilobar form, redeemable upon demand, and a basket of currencies 60% by the BRICS nations. Now, I did an interview with a man named Vince Lansky, a commodity trader, very smart, who believes China and Russia have been stockpiling gold for years and producing it and not telling the IMF how much they have. He believes they both have somewhere north of anywhere from 30 to 40,000 metric tons, which would be 4 to 5 times what the United States supposedly has. But we haven't had it audited since 1953, and when Ron Paul has twice asked to have it audited, he's voted down. Wonder why? It's our gold, right? Why can't we count our own gold? Good question. So, in any case, he thinks that Russia and China and maybe India will do the best they can to also partially back their currencies with gold in order to have it comprise the majority of the currency within the 60% basket of the BRICS new settlement currency, the unit. But let's even forget about that for a moment. Here's the interesting thing. Remember the way the BIS operates. For the past 2.5 years, the world have bought more gold than at any time in central bank history, ever. The first 6 months of this year, more gold sold to the central bank than ever, only beating last year. None of this is talked about in the Western media. Google it, you'll find it, but they're all massively buying gold. But more importantly, over 45 banks have repatriated their gold from the New York Fed and more so from the Bank of England in the past 2 years. I mentioned India. Brought home 100 metric tons they've had at the Bank of England since 1991 and bought 1.5 times the amount of gold. A record year last year, they bought 1.5 times more than that this year in the first 4 months and brought it all home. So I remember I said the perception is it's to avoid sanctions of the West. It's not to avoid sanctions of the West. It's because that's part of it. But if you look at the white paper in the unit, it says the unit token will be minted in the country of origin. Each country will mint their own tokens. The gold in the currency that is used to mint these tokens will be held in an escrow account and massively and independently audited continuously with massive penalties for deviation from the unit protocol. However, they will all be held within the borders of the countries that possess it. In other words, these countries will not have to send their gold to Moscow or Beijing to have a common currency. They will all maintain their own central bank digital currencies, and for settlement in energy or commodities or anything else another nation wants, there is the unit, which is 40% gold backed, redeemable upon demand by a nation, 60% BRICS plus currencies traded over Project Embridge. The West has no ability to stop it. Now, what does all of this mean? It means if they launch it in October, every country in the world who has had to stockpile dollars for 50 years creating that synthetic demand, well, they won't need to do that anymore because they will trade with one another in their own central bank digital currencies and using gold and the unit currency to purchase and settle in oil. And when you look at the demand for the Treasury, which was part of the petro deal, you recycle all of your excess proceeds in Treasuries, which has kept interest rates low and allowed us to live well beyond our means with all of the financing of our irrational and irresponsible fiscal policy. Well, they won't need to buy bonds anymore because why? Gold, the only other Tier 1 asset, has doubled the performance of the 10-year Treasury over the last 25 years and has no counterparty risk. If it's held within their own borders, good luck taking it from them. Ain't going to happen. To look at another country, especially one like ours, which is broke and insolvent and hypocritical and by their estimation tyrannical, and to look at their debt as an asset is strange if you think about it. And in a snapshot of historical sense, it has a very small footprint in terms of it being considered an asset, the debt of another country. But gold has been an asset for 5,000 years with no counterparty liability. That is what? The only other Tier 1 asset alongside U.S. Treasury that all of the central banks have been buying at a level the world has never seen and repatriating it, removing counterparty risk with the ability to mint the unit tokens within their own borders, traded over Project Embridge that is backed by the BIS. The BIS told all of these countries, start buying gold up the yin-yang and bring it home. We are entering a new system. Bretton Woods won when we were the dollar or the currency replacing the pound sterling. The World Reserve backed by gold. Nixon closed the gold window. We signed the Petro deal. Kissinger signs it in 74. For 50 years, every country's had to own dollars to buy oil. Gave us the World Reserve currency again. Last month, the Saudis don't re-up the exclusivity deal. They joined the BRICS, the Belt Road, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They're selling oil and other currencies. Do you see where I am going with this? Gold is replacing the Treasury. It has no counterparty risk, and it's doubled its performance. And issued by a country that's broke. That is $200 trillion in debt. And $1 trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. So what does it look like? You all know who Klaus Schwab is. Great Reset, you'll own nothing and be happy. So my mentor, Richard Russell, used to say 15 years ago, the Fed was so far indebted, they're screwed. They have two ways out, either to inflate or default. And his mantra always was inflate or die. And that's what we've seen, inflation, massive inflation. When my father bought his first Corvette in 1973, it was $6,500. Right now, it's $120,000. The GI Bill, when the guys came home from World War II, the life insurance was $10,000. I mean, if you made a job out of college in the late '60s, early to late '60s, making $10,000 a year, you would think you're a millionaire. Everything has changed. It's not that the world has gotten more expensive; it's that the dollars that we measure against have gotten worth less and less and less and less value. And remember, we're creating 100,000 in debt every second, 24/7, 365. The dollar is dying. What does Jared Bernstein want? Lose the world reserve status. So for the last 3 years, I've been saying, but wait, there's option 3. We incentivize the world by signing executive order to go green, weaponizing the dollar against all of these countries, incentivizing Saudi Arabia and all the OPEC countries to join the Belt Road, to join the BRICS, to find a union against the Western hegemony. Let's destabilize the hell out of our country. We'll let 20 million illegal migrants into the country. We'll overrun the inner cities, and there's something people should Google. It's called the Cloward-Piven theory. Cloward-Piven. They were husband and wife professors in Columbia University just around the time Obama and Jared Bernstein went there. Their whole theory that they taught is how to overthrow the United States and turn it into a socialist country with basic universal income and turn it basically into a shell of what it once was by overwhelming the inner cities and by overwhelming the entitlement programs, which leads to basic universal income and completely and totally destabilizes the country and turns it socialist. That was a class they taught. Well, you read the tenets of Cloward-Piven, you'll absolutely throw up and say they're doing this right now. But all of these things put together has put all of these countries in a position where if indeed they do announce the fact that we're going to no longer take dollars for oil anymore, we're only going to accept the new unit settlement currency, every country on the planet will dump dollars. Now, I've been saying this in 2,000 plus videos over the last 2 years. Go watch any of my videos on this, and you'll hear me say that that was in the New York Times saying we should not have the world reserve currency anymore. You incentivize the world to dump dollars and to move a different direction. And if every single country in the world who has had to stockpile dollars dumps them, realizing there's way more dollars around the globe than there are here, and all of those dollars hit the ocean and head our way in a tsunami of hyperinflation and hit our shores, the byproduct of hyperinflation is what? Interest rates that have to spike parabolically to compensate for the loss of purchasing power. You cannot have 30% inflation and 5% interest rates. Your currency dies. But what if you had 30% inflation, not at the hands of Powell? He tried to raise it to 5%, and the banks started to blow up. Just the other day, the Japanese tried to raise rates just a half a point, and the carry trade blew up, and our stock market blew up. The Nikkei blew up. The stock exchanges in Singapore and South Korea blew up. Oh, we're sorry, says the Japanese finance minister. The finance minister of the United Kingdom tried to create austerity and normalize their balance sheet, blew up all their pensions, backtracked, and went the other direction. We tried to do this in 2019 and created the repo market crisis, backtracked and went the other direction. We are so far indebted because of the suppression of interest rates for 20 years, where all of the distortions in asset prices have become so out of whack with reality that if interest rates rise and asset prices have to move to equilibrium to meet asset prices, in other words, what's your house worth at 3%? What's it worth at an 8% mortgage? What's it worth at a 28% mortgage? You get my drift. The higher the interest rates go, the real estate market blows up, stock market blows up, the banks that are over-leveraged and undercapitalized, well, they blow up. The insurance companies that are 90% invested in U.S. treasuries, well, they blow up. Stocks, bonds, real estate, the dollar, and the insurance companies all vaporize if that happens. If all of those dollars hit our shores and interest rates spike to meet that, controlled by the market, not by the Fed, and our lead economic advisor wants this, he's advocated for it, now we have a villain to point to. Those sons of guns, they did it to us. They did it to us, and this American public is probably just naive enough to buy it, but have no fear that everything is collapsed. Your stocks, your bonds,
Cancel.
What's it saying?
have no fear, because number two is here, Lil Brainerd. Modern monetary theory. All you need to do is sign the mark of the beast, sign on the dotted line, and you too will be made whole with our central bank digital currency. We are more than happy to do that. We will roll that out for you right now. And my belief is they understand very well, by the way, what gold is. And maybe, just maybe, they will peg it to gold. Because you have the head of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, at the beginning of last year wrote a report called Gold as an International Reserve Currency, Barbarous Relic No More, ? Her name is Kristalina Georgieva, and she just came out recently and said a central bank digital currency not pegged to something is fiat. What's the only thing that would make sense to peg it to? What's the unit pegged to? The only other tier 1 reserve asset in the world, gold. Why are all the central banks buying it? Because this is the playbook. Why are they all bringing it home? Because this is the playbook. How do you reset a system that you are trapped in? If you raise rates, you blow everything up and everyone suffers. If you continue to do as all governments have done and choose inflation over austerity, i.e. 100,000 a second, well, you end up at the same place ultimately, as all of that inflation leads to higher interest rates, which blows up the system. So option one, inflate. All politicians have done that. And by the way, that's why there are ridges around coins, because at the end of the Roman Empire, when they were much like we are right now, trying to maintain their supremacy, paying their soldiers all around the globe, they were running out of money. So they started to trim their gold and silver coins and give them smaller coins, which was a form of inflation. Well, now you have ridges, so you can't do that anymore. But that's option one, inflation. All governments have chosen that. Option two, default. We don't want to do that now, do we? Option three, getting a knucklehead lead financial advisor to the White House who advocates to lose the reserve standard and tell everyone to dump dollars. And the byproduct is everything explodes when those dollars hit our shore in massive inflation and massive parabolic rise in interest rates. Everything resets, and you blame them. Well, there is one other option that I'd like to mention, then I'll shut up. I know I think I've walked a mile already, and I will take any questions if there's still time. But the other option is option number 4, which just kind of came to me recently. Been talking about this for the last few months. The head of the Dutch National Bank has been talking about revaluing gold. And you can't make this up. Every central bank on the planet who holds gold on their balance sheet, it is held in an account called the Gold Revaluation Account. That's the name of it. Why? Wonder why? Is that just ironic, coincidental, or is there something here at play? And so what he says is, publicly recently, is that our balance sheet is upside down, but that's okay. We own 30 billion euro worth of gold in the revaluation account, valued at $35 an ounce. All of the gold in Europe is valued at $35 an ounce, still the Bretton Woods number officially on their balance sheets. In the United States, it's 42.22. I used to know why it was 42.22 and not 35, but I forgot. But irrelevant. Anyways, the official price of gold in the U.S. is 42.22. So the central banker, the head of the central bank from the Netherlands is saying we should do this. Well, that's not so crazy because Trump just spoke at the Bitcoin meeting in Tennessee 2 weeks ago, and he said we should develop a strategic Bitcoin stockpile for the United States government, and if I'm elected, I'll do that. The next person who spoke was a Senator Loomis from Wyoming, who said, I've already drafted a bill, here it is, and I propose that we fund this Bitcoin strategic account by revaluing the Federal Reserve, or the gold held at the Fed, the United States gold held at the Fed, revalue it and use some of the proceeds to buy Bitcoin. Every $4,000 increase in the price of gold, if they revalued it, would give $1 trillion free and clear to the Treasury to do whatever they want with. And Janet Yellen wouldn't even need congressional approval to do it. She would just tell her buddy Jerome Powell, revalue gold. Now, if all of the central banks, including those in the South, have been buying gold voraciously, wouldn't it benefit all of these central banks if the price of gold was, I don't know, if it were $20,000, that's $5 trillion to the Treasury free and clear. How about $100,000? You make gold $100,000, and what's so crazy about that when everyone says Bitcoin can go to $1 million? Why couldn't gold be $100,000? You raise it to $100,000, and we $120,000, and our balance sheet is now solvent. Our assets offset our liabilities, and now you can issue a new central bank digital currency and peg it to gold. Gold is high enough. You can do 40% pegging like the unit. Still have 60% monetary latitude in order to maneuver, create money, do things that central banks like to do, but tethered to a 40% rope that will not let them ever produce more money than that 40% backing. It will be a marriage between blockchain technology and commodities. That is what the new system will be. So when we talk about owning gold, we didn't even talk about silver. I could talk just as long just on silver, which is the most undervalued asset on the planet. The best asset to buy right now on the planet. In the end, it's gold. But there is a pathway to getting to gold through silver. We can talk about that next week or next time I'm on your show. But suffice it to say, in the end, long after the bills and all your wallets are hanging from a frame in the Smithsonian as an example of what used to be, in the year 3000, gold will still be immutable wealth as it has been since biblical times. And if you go back and look, pharaohs, queens, kings, emperors, none of them called their gold broker to make a gold purchase to invest. They owned it as a form of immutable wealth that has outlasted everything the world has ever thrown its way. This is why you want to own gold. Now, I'm going to shut up. And I'm going to take any questions if there are any.
Oh my goodness, Andy. You just gave us an awful lot to consider. And then on top of that, you gave us some options as well. I've never heard you speak before, but based on the way I'm hearing you talk, and and you went way beyond, above and beyond the call of duty here. You've been talking for about an hour and 20 minutes, and I'm so grateful. I didn't want you to stop. You were like, you're like a piñata. There's a lot of candy in
Well, I
there.
did it all from memory, too. That's the scary thing. My wife always, when I come out of the bedroom, she says, your zipper's undone. Why do you think I never remember to zip up your zipper? I can remember all this stuff, but I can't remember to zip up my zipper.
Because
Kind of
because this gold is more important than the zipper, I guess, right now.
I guess so. Evidently so. I don't do it purposely. I guess I'm just so occupied with these kinds of things, I forget the mundane.
You really took us through quite a lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you understand what he just did. He took you from the very beginning, from the days when look, go back to, I always give this example, don't I, family? When the three wise men brought the three gifts to baby Jesus, it wasn't just a little bit of gold. It was a whole caravan. They stopped at many villages along the way to get to that star, to find the Savior and present these gifts to him. And everywhere they stopped, they said, oh, Here, take this. We know who you're going to go see. Gold was the universal currency back at that time, and it still is. And listen to what Andy just said. In the year 3000, it will still be the most valuable asset on this planet. Yes, sir? Oh, I thought you were going to say something, Andy.
Yes, sir.
But
No, I didn't know. I'm listening to you.
But I'll tell you, you took us quite on a tour of an education from the days of baby Jesus to the days of Kissinger and Nixon, for that matter, taking us off the gold standard. And like you said, basically just, hey, you don't like it? Too bad. No, a little arrogant, and that puts us in the position that we're in today. But we have this. We have this safety net. We have the ability to separate ourselves from the fiat, from the currency, the paper, and look at the gold and silver. I'm going to look at everything you've got, sir. I'll tell you what, as you've been talking, it turns out that you're well known. Everybody, we had about 900 something people here, and they all, a lot of them were saying, "Oh my goodness, oh it's Andy, oh he's great, oh and you have a good reputation. Your company has a good reputation. You're rated very high in the business world as far as your credentials for your company. Was it Franklin Miles? Yeah. Oh my goodness, I've known about.
Miles, Franklin, I appreciate those kind words. We've been in business 34 years and 10 billion in sales and never had one customer complaint ever. Doesn't mean we haven't messed up. We make it right, but never had one material complaint put online or the Better Business Bureau ever. Probably the greatest achievement.
Somebody posted, Andy, and said you're gonna love their customer service. You're gonna love their customer service. Somebody posted. Again, your reputation precedes you, and in fact, when you were introduced to me, I brought my broker. Larry, are you there? I want Larry to come. When you and I were introduced to Andy for the very first time, I sat back and you and he were talking. And while he was talking, somewhere in the middle, you stopped him and you said, "Wait a minute, wait, I know you, sir. Your reputation precedes you. Yeah, I know a lot about you. And this is exciting that Frank wants to do business with you." I sure do.
I appreciate that very much, you guys. I do, and I take it very seriously, and I love what I do. And I've done 5 podcasts today, and then this, and it's what I do. It's what I love, and it's my honor to be here speaking to you and your group, and hope to do it again in the future. But I'm happy to take questions if it's too late.
Okay, no. Let's see what we can do. And by the way, and you're very good at what you just told us. You explained it. You're like a person that wants someone to understand. You care enough that you want them to understand what they're about to get involved with. It's not a sale. You're not doing things out of your pocket. I see you doing them out of your heart. I appreciate that, sir. I'm looking forward to doing a lot of business with you in the future. Now, let's see if we can find anybody that has a question for our friend Andy. And by the way, at the end, family, we're going to tell you how you can purchase gold through us at KTFA. But right now, let's look at some questions. Here's one. Andy, do you have a gold depository that you can recommend?
I believe we are the envy of the storage industry. We have worldwide exclusive with BRICS. We've worked with them for 16 years. We have all around North America: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Miami, Salt Lake City, Los Angeles, New York, soon to be Dallas. We have the only fixed rate storage program they've ever offered anyone. It's an exclusive where the value of the metals is not the determining factor of your fee. In other words, every other storage facility, they charge you of the asset value. So the higher the asset value goes, the higher your storage rate goes. We negotiated the only time they've ever given anyone a fixed rate is through us. It's based on the number of ounces you store rather than the value. We are the envy of the storage industry, in my opinion. No one can compete with us. And so yes, and even those that I don't work with, I can tell you if they're reputable and worth using. But yes, we do, and if people are interested, we have storage options that will accommodate any size client.
So basically, if we purchase gold, your company can hold it in your vaults, correct?
We can, but I will tell you, in my opinion, you're better off holding it yourself. I make money on storage. I mean, it's a residual income business. It's a great business. I had someone offer me 20 times EBITDA to buy it from me, a hedge fund. I said, no, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because we've delivered over 300 million worth of gold to all of to amongst all the depositories. It's a wonderful program, but I would still tell you, you hold it unless you can't. 50,000 in gold would be a tube of 20 gold eagles that you put in your front pocket. 50,000 in silver would be 120 pounds. That's a different story. But like I said, gold and silver are assets that maintain no counterparty liability, no risk. In a world that is so systemic and so spinning out of control off access, if you can hold it, do so. If you want to have it stored, yes, we offer segregated, fully insured storage that can't be beat. Absolutely.
Andy, you got to hear this. Brian Thornton, he is spot on. I love what he brought to us. Marie, Holly. I've been listening to Andy for about 5 years. Nugs? It says Nugs. Andy rocks. Excellent explainer. Everyone seems to love you, man. Simon, wow.
Thank you very
Awesome
much,
education.
everybody. It means a lot.
Awesome education information. So grateful. And family, let it be known that I believe that we'll be able to communicate with Andy at least once a week. It looks like we'll be able to bring him at least maybe every other week. And on the other weeks, they also have other meetings that we can go and listen to him. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah, and I do 15 to 20 on other people's shows every week, and I'm starting my own as well. So no rest for the weary.
Okay, let's see if we can find a question. Tink, do you see any questions there?
Yes, they want to know, do you report the purchase to the government, and is there a minimum or maximum?
Do you report my purchase to the government, and is there a minimum limit or maximum limit?
Well, there is no minimum and no maximum.
Okay.
We did 2 orders last year of $50 million. Each one was $52 million. One was 50. The 2 biggest orders I've ever done in 34 years.
Wow.
We have no order minimum.
Okay.
And no, the only time things are reported to the government when you buy gold is if you pay with green cash, like 20s, 50s, 100s, in excess of $10,000. We don't even take cash anymore. Our bank freaks out. Or if you use multiple money orders that are under $10,000. If you sent 2 money orders and each one of them were $45,000, or 2 cashier's checks, each one of them were $45,000, no reporting. If you send 7 cashier's checks of $9,000 each to make a $63,000 order, that is a Form 8300. It's the same thing as if you paid with $100 bills. It's the same thing if you paid with money orders. But, that would be true anywhere and any retail outfit in the United States. If you went to Nordstrom's to buy your entire extended family clothes, and you buy everyone a wardrobe, that's their Christmas present. You can get a whole wardrobe, and it costs you $23,000, and you pay $100 bills. They're going to give you a Form 8300 to fill out. It's not just about precious metals companies. Any retail, anything that sells with multiple money orders, multiple cashier's checks under $10,000, or cash over $10,000, then a Form 8300 is filed.
Okay.
Anything else that you buy, no, there is never, ever, ever, ever any reporting requirement when you purchase.
Look at this, Andy. Tom McIntyre says, Andy has worked hard all of his life, and he's an honest man in heart and words. Love you, Andy. I guess this must be a form.
Thank you, Tom. I love you too, brother. Thank you, man. That's awesome. I appreciate that.
Let's see, Jan, do we see any?
One thing I was going to bring up,
Yes,
Frank,
yes, sir.
That, a lot of our family is, when they're older, like me and you, and we have IRAs, and I think that Miles Metals has a nice IRA program too for people if they want to convert it over. I think Andy can explain that more.
Yeah, we do, and I'm going to say this in 2 ways. If any of you out there, and out of respect, okay, I believe in respect, even if respect isn't warranted. But if any of you have an IRA with companies that have sold you quarter-ounce gold coins that you paid between $900 and $1,200 an ounce, or 1 ounce, or 1.5 or 2 ounce silver coins that you paid between $1,600 and $1,400 for, you should let us know you've been taken advantage of. You really have, and there are ways that we can help you get out of this problem. These companies should be thrown in jail, as far as I'm concerned. Every one of them. They are stealing from the public. They are preying. A lot of them use religion to get in the door, and they are preying on elderly folk who have worked their whole lives to put their money into gold and silver, and they are absolutely destroying them. A lot of these companies have paid-for company spokesmen. They're bad news, and we will, at no obligation, help you. If you want to talk about it, you can reach out to us. But as far as IRAs are concerned, yes, we can help you do that. And what's really cool about the Precious Metals IRA, first of all, we would tell you to work with a custodian that we trust. We work with all the custodians. So you take your IRA, whomever the custodian is. There's only about a half a dozen or a dozen custodians in the United States that actually allow metals in IRAs. We work with all of them. There's one in particular that I like in Louisville, Colorado, called New Direction. You would roll over your existing IRA to New Direction. And once it's there, you can buy anything you want, from 10-year treasuries to common stock to gold and silver. It is physically held in a depository, and they're not in our BRICS depository because the custodians work out. But there's one depository in Texas, for example, called IDS, and they're massive. And they charge, even if you spend $1 million, you'd pay $275 a year in storage. The IRA custodians, and that's segregated. The IRA custodians work out really sweet deals with the storage companies because it's a constant funnel of business to the storage companies. So, anyways, it's held segregated in the storage account. Let's say IDS. Now, there are two ways to take money out of IRAs. You can liquidate it, or you can take a distribution. Let's look at an IRA as a pie. A liquidation, you take the whole pie. A distribution, you cut the pie right down, right through to the crust and take a portion of your pie. And you do that. The whole idea is to take little pieces at a time to avoid higher taxation, because the money in there is pre-tax, so it's regular income. It can bump you up to a higher tax bracket if you take a big chunk of it and a big tax bill all at once. But so the two ways of taking it out are liquidation and distribution. In either case, you can take the metal in kind instead of a cash distribution. So perfect if you're getting older and you got this IRA, you roll it into gold and silver bullion coins like the American Eagle, or 1 ounce gold bars, or silver rounds, or silver maple leafs, silver eagles, anything that is very liquid, very sought after, not subjective, not overpriced, and easily shopped with everyone. These companies that sell these quarter-ounce coins, you won't find another dealer online that offers them. And that's what they say. It's a special deal. It's a really great deal. But the dealers, when they see them, they don't want them. They'll bid 99% of melt value because nobody wants them. These companies are horrific. Anyway, so you put all of this gold and silver into a storage account in your name, segregated in the IRA. You could liquidate it and go to cash. You could sell it and reposition and buy 10-year treasuries, or you could say, give me all my gold and silver, and they'll ship it to you as a taxable event. But if you believe enough in the investment to hold it in your IRA, the ability to possess it free from counterparty risk at any point, even though it's a taxable event, is a really good thing to know. A Roth IRA, there would be no taxes. You could just take the metal home anytime and just be done with the IRA and possess the metal. And I just think that's really important for people to know. To me, it is the whole reason to buy a precious metals IRA in physical metal, because you have the ability to possess it should you desire.
I'll tell you what, how about a couple of more questions, because I do have an appointment at 8:30, but they're just going to have to wait for me. What we have is someone asking the question, is there any way that the government can take any of my storage facilities away from me, away from your company?
Sure they can.
They can?
Yes,
Oh.
the governments can do desperate things, but I don't think they will do it. In 1933, Roosevelt's first act in office was to confiscate the gold of the American public. Gold was $20 an ounce. He paid everyone $20.54. 54 cents was a lot of money back then. Everyone thought they got a great deal. then he immediately devalued the dollar. Think gold revaluation account. He devalued the dollar by 40%, and gold went up by 40%, just like that. That's exactly what I think they're going to do this time, except they won't need to confiscate gold because the people who own it are the pimple on the elephant's rear end. And the elephant doesn't own any gold. Back then, everyone owned currency. The currency was gold. Gold coins were currency back then. Now, it is estimated that from Joe and Jane's six-pack to the Harvard Endowment Fund, the allocation of gold in any capacity, or even gold equities like mining shares, is less than 0.5%. The blowback, if the world looked at the United States as a country that would enact eminent domain, Venezuelan-style nationalization of assets, they would never trust us again. Good luck ever retaining any status as world reserve or center of free trade if they felt, look, they'll take their country's own gold. China and Russia are begging their citizens to own gold, and we would take it. Big problem, but they have an alternative, and I've always felt this. The two biggest ETFs on the planet are GLD and SLV. SLV is the single largest stockpile of silver in the world, and guess who the administrator is? Oh yeah, JP Morgan, the company that paid $920 million fine for manipulating the silver market, and their head trader is still in prison. And they are still allowed to be the administrator of the world's largest silver trust, and guess who their
Oh, no.
GLD is also administered partly by JP Morgan, partly by HSBC Bank. It's the fourth largest stockpile of gold in the world, I believe. So on a Friday night, they close those two funds. You can never take possession of the metal anyway. And if any of you own GLD or SLV, download the prospectus online, read pages 6 through 12 titled Risk Factors. And if you don't sell it, I'll bet you $100. $100 that you'll sell it after you read the prospectus, which I guarantee you never read if you own it. But on a Monday, so the whole theory of an ETF is that every share is an actual ounce, is 10 ounces of silver, 1/10 of an ounce of gold. So when you buy, 10 shares of SLV, 100 ounces of silver would be put into the trust, in theory. But because they say that they have the right to pay the fees out of the kitty of the metal, there's an inequity. But it's a bad thing. They allow naked shorting, and they allow all of these things in this account. It's a tool of the central bank suppression. However, they could come in on a Friday night and they could say, we have nationalized GLD and SLV, we've closed them. You had $2 million in the two accounts. That money's now in your money market. You're free to buy gold and silver from Miles Franklin or any other dealer in the country at will. We're not making gold ownership illegal, but we just went without going door to door to people who have NRA stickers on their door, who are not as patriotic as they were in 1933. They don't need to do that. Instead, and when it only represents such a minute case, they're printing more money or are spending more money in 10 hours than they probably get in all the gold and silver they took from the American household. So instead, they funnel all the big money into GLD and SLV, because when I was young, they used to be called stockbrokers. Now they're called money managers, and the difference is they used to get paid per trade. Now those trades are largely fee-free, so they get paid by how much money they have under their umbrella. So if someone says, I'm going to buy $100 grand in gold, the advisor says, don't do that, buy GLD and SLV. You don't have to store it and do all that stuff and risk it, because they don't want to lose that percentage that comes off their plate. And I guess that's human nature. The point of it is I'm not saying all of them, but many advisors have lost their ability to be impartial because of that. So the bottom line is you have all of this money, the big funds and all the people who have accounts and retirement accounts who want exposure to gold and silver. They're told to buy GLD and SLV, which is now the largest stockpile of silver in the world, run by JP Morgan and BlackRock, and the fourth largest stockpile of gold, run by HSBC, who's probably been fined more than JP Morgan for lawlessness and manipulating LIBOR and doing drug money laundering for the South American cartels, and all of these things, along with JP Morgan, who paid the largest fine ever by the Justice Department for manipulating the silver market. Well, they run GLD. On a Friday night, they close those accounts. The money's in your money market account, and they're sitting on the largest stockpile of silver and the fourth largest of gold in 24 hours without breaking laws or infringing civil liberties. So do I think they'll take it? No. But if they were, the one place I would probably be the most concerned about would be IRAs, because in 2009, after the great financial crisis, I was 39 years old. When I was very young, when I first started in this industry, God rest his soul, a man named John Tomchek, a geologist, he said to me, Andy, how much money you got? I said, I have $9,000 in an IRA, John. That's it. He says, well, I want you to put it all into a stock. Trust me on this. It's called Western Copper. It's 6 cents a share. I said, okay, John, whatever. I don't know where else to put it. So I did. And I had lots of shares at 6 cents a share. And shortly thereafter, it changed its name to Western Silver. Western Silver was shortly then after bought by Glamis Company for $7 a share, and Glamis was bought by Goldcorp for $32. I turned $9,000 into over $700,000, and it sat in my IRA for a very long time. In 2009, I have 3 kids. I'm young. My youngest was just born, and I see after the financial crisis, there's a bill that makes it all the way down to the House floor that says the next time this happens, they'll show you how fast things have changed, because then there was a $70 pool of IRA money. $2 trillion debt. It's doubled since 2009. Anyways, the vetoed that next time this happens, we'll take everyone's IRAs, we'll liquidate them and put them into an annuity guaranteed by the U.S. government, all funded by U.S. Treasuries. It would be done to stabilize the system. It was vetoed. But to me, the genie was out of the bottle. And it was the wrong thing to do. But I always think most of us go through life saying, darn it, I knew I should have done it. I marched to my own tune. It's much easier to be wrong when you did it on your own volition and you thought about it and prayed on it and researched it, and you got it wrong. But when you're right, it's much easier. But when you're wrong and someone talked you into it, it's much worse. So I cashed out my IRA and I put all my money into silver and gold. At the time, I've never looked back. I would have made more money leaving it in equities, but I've never looked back. The point of it is that the one place that I think they could be tempted to take would be IRA gold held in depositories, not personal money held in depositories. If you ever got a sniff of that, you run, you don't walk, you run to get all of your gold and silver home. You could drive to the depository, cash out your IRA, and get it in your possession. That's all supposition. I don't know that to happen or be fact, but I'll tell you that I don't think they'll confiscate gold the way they did in 33.
Well, Andy, there's a lot of questions, but unfortunately, you pour your heart into each question. We're going to have to save these questions for next time, family. It's about 100 questions here. Instead, as we try to wind this up, tell me, how does my KTFA family, what do they have to do to order this where we get credit for it? Do we have a website?
The best thing that they will do is to mention the name of your show in the subject line of an email to info@milesfranklin.com.
Okay,
and they will receive a price list substantially better than the prices listed on my website, as good or better than 99.9% of the companies in North America. It'll be a special price list of all of our inventory. You send an email, info@milesfranklin.com. Put your company name in the subject line. Ask any questions you'd like. Questions on IRAs, what I talked about, if you're one of the few who invested with some of these IRA companies, or anything you've heard on this show. I have 14 brokers, every one friends of mine outside of work. Every one of them were friends of mine outside of work before they worked for me, like some of my childhood friends since elementary school. Most of them had careers in Wall Street, master's degree from Wharton, master's degree from Temple University on Business Administration. Very sophisticated people who can answer anything that we've talked about here. They're not order takers. And to the point of customer service, we are a hybrid. We do allow purchasing online up to 10,000. Our new website will be done soon, which will be more user-friendly within 6 weeks. But the best way is to send that email. If you just want the price list, just say, I want the price list. No obligation. If you want questions answered, put your phone number down. Ask questions. If you want info on IRAs, anything, ask it. There's no obligation. We do not harass. We do not solicit. We do not bother. We will not be undersold. And one last piece, and then I'll let you run. When you buy a commodity, when you buy a McDonald's hamburger where I live in Delray Beach, Florida, or wherever you live, you would suspect that the hamburger should taste the same. That's homogenous. Everything's the same. So when you buy gold and silver from a company, it's a commodity. It's homogenous. It's the same. So what's the difference? What the difference is, aside from price, is the person selling it to you or the company selling it to you. Aside from having an A-plus rating, aside from being one of only 27 companies that have ever been approved as a United States Mint authorized reseller. We were nominated by Prudential Beige 16 years ago. They're no longer in the business. In fact, they sold their company to Jeffries and then got out of the gold business. But we are recognized by the U.S. Mint. We've never had a customer complaint. But really what sets us apart is the accreditation in the state of Minnesota. I left Minnesota and moved to Florida when Minnesota lost its mind. When they defunded the police, when they let the 3rd Precinct burn down on national TV, when Antifa was coming out into the suburbs, I was sleeping with handguns on my nightstand every night doing podcasts. And I left. I left my corporate office there for a reason. We've had a satellite office in Delray Beach for 15 years, so I moved here. And I'm glad I did. But I will always love Minnesota. In fact, I'm going back there tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. And what differentiates us is that Minnesota is the only state in America where you have to be background checked, licensed, and bonded to sell metals. And everyone in the company has to be subjected to background checks every year. If I had a felony or anyone had a felony, because it's all principals, everyone, and if any felony related to financial services, you're forever blackballed from being in the industry. Continuing education and compliance and a very large surety bond that we post. Therefore, almost every company in America, over 99% of them, will not do business in Minnesota because whether you're domiciled in the state or have an office in any other state and sell into Minnesota, if you are not licensed, bonded, background checked, and verified by the Commissioner of Commerce in the state of Minnesota, they will sue you and shut you down. So everyone else says, you know what, nuts to Minnesota, I'll work everywhere else. But we embrace it. I could have saved a lot of money by moving my corporate office to Delray Beach. I left it there because I do believe that the accreditation of both the U.S. Mint and the state of Minnesota, our reputation of never having a customer complaint and our Better Business Bureau rating makes us not only the best company to come to for price and service, but also for safety. And you can't get ripped off. We have a very large surety bond backing every transaction we do. And so that's what differentiates us. That's how you get in touch with us. And I look forward to picking up where we left off. I could keep going, but I think I've walked in circles for about 3 miles, so it's probably best that we all go.
So once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in learning about this product and receiving a further discount than what you'll see on the catalog,
Way further, like substantially further.
I mean, think about it. You're with KTFA, right? So here's what you do. If you want to learn, you want to get the menu, you want to see the catalog of all the things that you can purchase, you send it to info@miles, MILES, Franklin, FRANKLIN.com. And then put Frank26 in the subject line. That way, when you send them that email, you then become my customer, and I will get credit for your purchase, and I appreciate that. The other thing, too, we will be having a banner on our website at ktfoes.com. Do we have the HTML encoded? Do we have the information? If you could help me with that, Andy, I'd appreciate it. Get me the HTML encoding, whatever it takes, where we can put a banner on my website where people can click and then be able to order directly from you. Can we do that?
Yes, sir, I will do that. But remember, all of your people will get a better price doing it offline than online. Online is for convenience. You'll get a better price working with one of our brokers. And when I say better, it's fairly substantial. I have purposely chosen to not post these prices online. I keep them close to the vest. There are many reasons why I do it, but it allows us to be number 1 or 2 most competitive companies in America. And when measured against the ones who are able to come close to us, their reputation pales in comparison, as does their track record and history.
So they can send to inquire, like I said earlier, family, I'm hoping you wrote it down. Send it to, what was that, info@milesfranklin.com,
and if you want to be contacted by a broker, which will not be pressure at all, let us know, and we'll do that for you.
Okay, so not only put Frank26 in the subject line so that you become my customer, but now also you can ask to talk directly to a broker. I like that a lot better. And also, we're being told by Andy, it's best that you don't go to the website per se. Instead, send this email. Also, Larry, can I give the phone number that you have specifically for this product?
Yes, sir. Yes, go ahead.
And my broker, as you all know, Larry Altman, he put a phone number out there strictly to cover this product. So Larry's phone number for this product of gold from our dear brother Miles Franklin. Larry's phone number is 571-421-7866. Once again, 571-421-7866. And Larry then will guide you and tell you how you can purchase this gold through us. Or you can call me. You can call me. You know my phone number. Everybody knows it. My phone number is 419-283-2552. 419-283-2552. You can call Larry or myself, or you can just go straight to info@milesfranklin.com and put Frank26 in the subject line, and they'll help you out. We're also going to get the banner as we're talking, but that's later on. Maybe next month we'll do that. I want to follow Andy's instructions. I want to follow my broker's instructions. And I just simply want to tell everybody thank you. For example, Lisa Lyons just posted, Andy's transparency is a blessing in these type of days that we're going through right now.
Thank you, Lisa.
You said so right. I want to thank you. Larry, do you have anything you want to say to Andy or any closing words to our KTFA family?
No, just real quick, that was a great call. I mean, you can see Andy's going to inform these people about the medal's history, and he really hit it out of the ballpark tonight, and I look forward. I think we talk about it every 2 weeks, so I'll coordinate that, but get that going.
I love this lecture.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love this lecture, Larry. I have degrees in biology and other subjects, and I was always bored with all my lectures. This one captivated me. Every time that he said something, there was something else that he added to it that I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't know that. Or I said to myself, my goodness, that makes sense. We're going to learn a lot from you, Andy, and I believe deep in my heart that this investment that we're all involved in, I believe it has potential, and I believe that it may be coming about. So with that in mind, we're going to be needing to diversify our capital gains. And what a better place than to start with your product. I thank you, and we'll see you then.
You got it, guys. Thank you. The honor was mine, and I look forward to picking up with all of you where we left off. I hope you all have a blessed evening, and
if you can,
just a deep appreciation for allowing me to speak with you all.
As soon as you can be with us again, sir, you let me know and we'll bring you right in, because you see, now we need to answer their questions. They're going to call you or they're going to write to you, but I think we know if they can get answers from you personally. So next week, let's see if we can bring you in if you have the time to do so, okay?
I sure do. Next week will be fine. I'll look forward to it.
Yeah, all righty. Larry, any final words?
Yeah, Frank, I think this will probably be one of your biggest recorded calls people will watch.
I think so. I think so too.
If you put it out there.
Yeah, I mean, we know what's happening. We know what's. Go ahead, Larry. Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody. I know everybody's got to move on, but man, it was a great night, guys. Great night.
We know.
Thank you very, very much.
We know what's happening to the American. We know what's happening to the American dollar, and we also know what stabilizes it. So, ladies and gentlemen, these precious metals are going to be part of your life, and Andy is now a part of my life. God bless you, Andy. Thank you kindly for being with us, and thank you also, Larry.
Indeed. Well.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Good night.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was that's what 2 hours. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of information for you to soak in all at once. Gold. Yeah, I'm more attracted to gold than I am to silver, but I wore both colors for you tonight. Gold, the universal language, huh? It's what they brought baby Jesus. And I liked what Andy said. During the times of Jesus, it was the #1 currency. Right now it is. In the year 3033, it's going to be also the most important thing. If we had aliens that came and landed here on Earth, you know what they would want? Probably water, because we're a water planet and they're very rare to find. But you know what else they would want? Our gold. Because gold is, it's universal in many things, not just in the sense of monetary. It's also a very, very powerful metal that can be used for many different things. Thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be with you tomorrow when we do our next Wednesday UB2B. We're down to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, tomorrow is your 5th one. And I thank you, by the way, for all your phone calls inquiring about our forum. If you have any questions, my name is Frank. My phone number is 419-283-2552. I don't like texts. I've got, and I don't know if you can even see that number. It's a little fuzzy, but that number says 268 texts. No, it doesn't show it for some reason. Oh, well. Yeah, I just can't catch up with everyone. So send me a voicemail. Voicemails, I seem to be able to control them a little bit better. Ladies and gentlemen, gold, huh? Yeah, gold. I wouldn't gamble with it, but I sure would invest in it. Thank you for being with us, and we're going to teach you more about gold and silver and other precious metals as well, too. God bless. See you tomorrow. Sweet aloha. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
I haven't heard that in such a long time. I forgot that she says goodbye. That was fascinating. That was interesting. I mean, the man made a lot of sense, didn't he? When you stop and think about it, this is the perfect, I mean, you talk about perfect timing to bring this product. Are you a member of KTFA? No, why not? It's free, and premium is only $10 a month. Is Karen my new cheerleader? Is that what that is? Way to go, Karen! The song, Frank. No, Steve, I don't want to mix the study of that with these promos, okay? But, maybe I'll do it next time. We'll see. My head hurts. I'm going to need a bigger hat. I know, Tigger. Lisa, you're bringing up the subject of platinum. Platinum. What is platinum? Platinum. Yes, I know. I'm interested in copper. I want to buy a lot of copper because I want to surround certain parts of my house with copper. They can't hear you through copper. Study it. Anyways, God bless you. Very informative, Frank. I agree. Mahana26, if I'm saying that right. Karen M, not new, always been here. I know that, Karen. Robert Green says, is that a gold cookie? Where? Queen, thank you so very much, Uncle Frank and Tank. We really appreciate you both. I love you. I love you in the name of Christ. Brian, there's Toy VP. How do I find out if I'm a member? Stop it. Oh, dear. Hey, by the way, Toy VP, and you, Tigger, if I have time, maybe I'll call you guys within the hour because, I didn't release our team's report today. But I don't mind sharing it with you right now. I'll share it with everybody tomorrow. Anyways, Steve F1 says, it's all good, Frank. It is. It's really good. Robert Johnson, I would like to have a deck like that. That's a golden deck, wasn't it? Bus driver, I sent an email, Snow Whisper, and it went through. Good. Okay, that's good. Anyways, I think we covered everybody. I love the card. Okay. God bless you all. Thank you for being with us, and I'll see you tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And don't forget, Half of it is going to be a little lecture, and the other half I'm going to open it up to questions and answers. Hit me with your best shot. Sweet aloha. Bye-bye. I told you to wait.